guys, it's the 30th of May 2022. It's been a little while. Simon's last wrap up was basically just explaining the last bit of the truck build and ran through that, and now we're back inside the workshop working on motors for the kombi. So where are we at, Simon?
Yep, so we are finally getting onto the motor. The motor's been sitting around for 3 years we've had it. So we got the block probably 4 years ago, then I got it machined by Jack Brothers. So they just honed it out to suit the Pistons. It's a 4.5 inch bore. So the motor's a 540, so it's a Dart Big M, so it's got a 4.25 stroke or 4.5 inch bore. There goes the compressor. Yeah, so yeah, we've got a roller cam in there. It's not massive, but we want it to be a little bit reliable. So this roller cam's 615, 636 on its lift. It's 615 on the intake, 636 on the exhaust. Duration at 50 is 246 on the intake and 54 at 50. It's a mechanical roller. It doesn't need to be much bigger than that. It'll make plenty of power. It'll have around 10 to 1 compression. I'm no maestro at building engines, but I did build a few back in my day with lots of help from advice from asking everyone, but yeah, they did work. So this one here has got a Milliton gear drive. We've managed to degree the cam and all the specs coming into what they are. Just had to drill a hole in here so I could fit the gear on. On the Milliton gear drives, there's 7 possibilities when you get it set up right. So this one we set up at 14 degrees before top dead center. We put the camshaft to 14 degrees at 50 foul lift. So at 50 foul lift, that's where we set it up at, and the numbers came in right. Yeah. So what we're doing right now is we've got 4 pistons in, we've put the rings on, we've gapped the rings, and once we've done that, these are Yellow Terror pad mounted rockets, so we've had to machine them. We had to take about 2.7 mil off them so we can get the strike pattern on the tip of the valve. The idea is that when it goes through its lift, that you want it right in the center of the valve, and we've managed to get that. But we had to machine all the pads down to suit. We're yet to do the exhaust, but the intakes are done. The next thing we do is we've got to check the installed height. So it gives you an installed height on the can. So this one here needs 1.950 on the installed height, 190 pound on the seat. We'll give it a bit more on the exhaust because it's supercharged. But yeah, that'll be the next thing. We may have to remove a couple of shims out of the springs to set it right, and hopefully they come in not too heavy. They're pack springs that come with the airflow research heads. The heads are 345 intake runners. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're not really building race motors. It's going to be noisy, isn't it, Bruce?
Rup.
Yeah. This is Bruce's second motor build since we've been in this. We did a truck before, now we're building a big block Chevy.
Yep, they're almost the same.
They're almost the same, except this one's got a few more cylinders.
Cummins versus big block Chev.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at. Oh, there's all the rings down there. The rest of them are in the ball. We got them to around 30, 31 foul based on many different
recommendations.
Yep. Yeah, so that's it. She's all going together, but we're not in a hurry. Like, it'll come along a lot quicker than the fabrication work, but we'll go for everything. There's a lot of little bits of custom flake that comes out of the head, so I wouldn't want to bolt them straight on. There's shit comes out of them everywhere, like in the casting where they push the guides through and stuff. So we'll have to clean them right up, like get them all clean, spotless and stuff like that. Just go through and deburr any casting flake. And that's about it, yeah. So hopefully we'll get some more updates on the motor soon and where we're coming along with that. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. Just slowly but surely, and we'll get it done. There's no need to rush it.
Yeah.
We've only got one motor, so we can't afford to harm it in any way, shape or form. So
we've only got one at this stage.
At this stage, yeah.
Can I get a bit of a bigger blower later?
Sure.
I don't know how bigger, because it's 8.7 will only fit in that area, but just maybe a fresher one.
Something fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all the bits, fall down there and bits and pieces, but yeah, it is good not to be fabricating for a change. A little bit of machining, but not that they're working on a truck.
more of the fun part in here, doing all the little bits and pieces on a motor rather than slapping together walls on a truck and putting a toilet in and
Yeah.
painting and etc. etc. So this is the fun part of the build. So
Cool.
exciting stuff.
We'll definitely have some more updates on our soon. Rightio, with all the clearancing done, it was time to clean the block up. So I ran a thread tap through all the threads to make sure they were clean. A lot of cast iron you could see in there left in from the machining. So it's a good idea to clean them up. So when the block was thoroughly washed, I heated it up and got all the oil off it, and it was time to break out the spray paint, Chevy Orange. So painted it all up, came up a treat. Original big block colour, Chevy Orange, best colour around. So basically painted it all up, got it all done, and then it was time to knock all the Welsh plugs in, like rear Welsh plugs, a lot of them in the motor. You see there all the side brush Welsh plugs went in, some MPT fittings that went in around where the cam is and stuff like that. And yeah, got it all cleaned up, ready to go. So now we're getting closer and closer to assembling the motor. Now it was all clean. Crank was cleaned out, all the oil journals and stuff were cleaned, and all the holes for the oil transfer were cleaned out. All the main caps, everything was pretty much spotlessly done. Then it was time to put bearings in and start putting the crank in. So the crank in went pretty straightforward. Everything was checked before with all the clearancing and stuff like that. Once that was done, main caps went on, pretty straightforward. Once all the main caps were done, on with the timing cover with the camshaft. Camshaft went in, and next thing was to put the blower hub on. You can see it down the bottom. This blower hub runs a belt just behind that. You'll see in later on the videos coming up. All the rods and pistons were time to go in, and I had a shelf made up years ago when I used to race drag cars where I kept all the rods and pistons in. I've still got it, and everything's in there numbered. So all the valves, everything's got their home in their own little cupboard. Cleaned and assembled them, all the valve springs ready to go, all the packers, that's to shim it so I've got the right valve spring pressure, and time to assemble each individual piston. Rightio, so putting the piston together here, a lot of parts that go into it. So they're the spiral locks, those 4 little buggers. This piston's number 5, it's been engraved. That's the oil ring support rail. There's the 2 rails for the oil ring, that's the oil ring, so that's all the assembly of that. That's your top and the bottom piston rings right there. Rod bolts. These are Kelly's rods, 6.385s, all clean, gudgeon pin and bearings, yeah. So we assemble them up. Rightio, so once I had all the rings on the pistons, basically it was time to start putting them in the block. So yeah, all of them done. Bored up all the big ends, greased up all the rod bolts, and yeah, started putting them in. So it's a 4.5 inch bore. That's a sleeve we use to put the pistons into the block and basically knock them down for rubber mallet. And yeah, they all basically went in fairly neatly, and it had already been pre-checked in the pre-assembly and stuff like that. And yeah, everything was oiled up, greased up, and we'll go on to the next video of the bottom end together. So it's the 12th of June 2022, King Kombi update. The bottom end's pretty much together now, so you've got to put the oil pump on, sump on, check the magneto drive and all that for the oil pump drives, I should say. But all the rods and pistons are in now, so all turns over. Yeah, it's just coming along really good now. So tomorrow I'll be on to between work, oil pump, magneto drive. When I'm happy with that, I'll clean all the sump out, which is down there, and put the sump on. And once that's done, cylinder heads will be on. Once cylinder heads on, I can start getting push rod lengths, and yeah, the intake manifold. So the motor's coming along really, really well. Take about 20 days to get to this stage. That's from like trying everything, degreeing the cam, doing all the rings, stuff like that, but it takes time. If it had been full time, I'd say it'd have about 6 or 7 days, all the clearancing and stuff. So there you go. I'll have more updates soon. So before installing the Moroso gyrator oil pump, I stripped it apart, give it a really good clean, made sure nothing was sticking, checked the spring tension for the oil pressure. When I was happy, I put it all back together. Okay, so liquid at 5 degrees. At this mark here, be the bone, that's that cut mark there. The sump has 7 litres of oil. So 5 degrees, that's what the engine is leaning back at. We have 7 litres of oil in there. There you go. Rightio, after I checked all the capacity of the sump, I basically cleaned everything and got it super clean. That's a little oil door that, as the oil rushes forward, it keeps it in that little area to keep it all around the pump. Cleaned everything up. Then the windage tray that I made earlier, I had to get that cleaned up, so I sent that off to get a CAD coating. You'll see it in the next picture here. It's all been CAD plated. Helps stop corrosion, just keep it all nice and clean. And then it was time to bolt it all in, which I did, and start putting the sump on. So those rods there that you see, they're like big studs I made up that bolt through to hold the sump down, because this Big M has, you know, different oil pan setups. You can run like just the 8 bolts, or you can run a full oil pan. In our case, we just run the 8 with the pan that I made up. There it is, all onto the motor. And yeah, so it all went on pretty straightforward, and all of a sudden we had pretty much a short block together. Then I put on the basically timing degree wheel, which goes on the front of the blower hub. You'll see it there. That's marked out, you know, with TDC. In here I'm setting it up so just verifying top dead center. So that marker, you can easily rotate it to say 30 degrees timing, you know, 28, 29 or 32, 33. The more timing, the more power. And yeah, it's got 90, 180, 270, obviously top dead center. And you'll see in the next video here, I'll explain a little bit more of that in the next one here. Rightio, so what you're looking at in this video, that little red pointer there, that's the timing pointer. And that's the degree wheel which goes on the blower hub. So King Kombi runs a very basic ignition system called a ProMag, which is a magneto. It's a very simplistic system. How it works is we set the timing basically at 28 to 30 degrees of initial timing before top dead center. That means the lower down the piston is, the more fuel it gets in. The more ignition timing you give it, the more power the motor makes. So in our case, we don't need to make a lot. If you give it 32, it'll make more power. 33, it'll make more power. It runs on methanol, so it doesn't really have too much of a detonation problem. It just makes more power. But with 30 degrees of timing, the thing should comfortably make 850 to 950 horsepower. If you have more boost, it'll make more power, but that's how the ignition timing works. Rightio, it was time to start getting the cylinder heads ready to go on. So these are Fall Pro. They're multi-layer head gaskets. From what I understand, some of these have been run up to 20 psi of cylinder pressure, and they hold in good, providing it doesn't detonate or anything like that. So got them on, got the cylinder heads on, engraved them with King Kombi. Yeah, they all went on fairly straightforward. You'll see there I'm running head studs, so it's all bolted down with head studs. And finally they're on. It was a good time. So now it was time to get the oil into it. This was a good feeling. So the motor takes 7 litres of oil in the pan plus the oil filter. You can see there. This is a Driven. It's a heavy, the brand of the oil is called Driven. I think it's pretty popular in the States. They call that GP1. It's a 50 weight oil, as it's a methanol motor, and it's quite a thick oil. And I do run bigger bearing clearances on this, on the mains and on the big ends. Not crazy. They're around the 3 thou mark on the mains, and on the big ends they are. So yeah, just loading up was actually a good feeling to finally tip some oil into something that you build. I think anyone that's built a motor will feel the same. And there it goes, getting the last drops of it in there. So as I said, it took 7 litres. That's what the pan holds. Is a methanol motor, so they do dilute the oil a bit, but yeah, you keep on top of that by checking their oil. Rightio, it was time to start putting the rocker gear on now. So before the rocker gear went on, I laid it all out, cleaned it, tipped it in this bucket and loaded it up foil and left them for a good 24 hours. It's always a good idea with stuff that's got little rollers and stuff in there to get them saturated in oil. So big load of oil, poured it in there and let them sit for a good solid 24 hours, and that always makes mechanical parts nice and happy when they've got a good load of oil in them. So yeah, so they were done, let them sit, and the next thing was to start getting all the rockers and push rods into the motor. This video here, you'll see all the rockers are put on there. These are shaft mounted Yellow Terra Platinum rockers. They're actually made in Australia. I've used them on my race cars before and never had any problems with them. Everyone's got their own choice in rockers. These are a pedestal style mount, so you can basically machine them to your right heights and so forth. Only quite a small roller camshaft on this motor. So yeah, they're all on there. You can see the intake manifold gaskets have been slashed down. I let the manifold sit overnight so they were into place so they don't blow out. Onto the manifold, one of the dramas I did have here was that the burst panel, that's a safety burst panel, actually sat high, it sat proud, so I had to sand that all down. And you can see here with the ruler, it was all cleaned up. I obviously sanded off the motor and get that all done. The next thing to start making was the power steering mount. So this is power steering. So behind the blower pulley, it's got this V-groove pulley. It's a special supercharger pulley. So you can run the power steering off it. So I finally found the right size belt. It was off to the scrap bin to find some steel, and I made up pretty much a banana bracket, that's what I call it, out of some heavy steel onto the CNC grinder, chopped it out and got it to shape, what it's supposed to look like. Then I gave it a good linish up, made it look the part, and started figuring out, so there was two nice bosses, 3/8 UNC bolts to bolt it on the front of the block there, and that's how the bracket ended up mounting up. There is no custom stuff for this. Stuff that you can buy off the shelf, so it's easy just to make your own stuff. So that's how I adjust the belt up there. You'll see the power steering pump here in a minute. It's a Howe off-road racing power steering pump. There it is there, so inlet, outlet to run it. I needed an adjuster bracket, so for that I used aluminium. You can see that bit of alloy there, I carved it out. And you'll see it here, and this is pretty much how you adjust it. So bolts on there, bolt on there, so it's held onto the block fairly toughly. It's got, you'll see it here in a sec here where we actually, so you can tighten it up there, put the belt on, and then obviously you can push the thing up and down, so it is held on there quite tough onto the block. That cylinder head actually does miss it. It looks like it doesn't, but it actually does miss the thing. And there's the bracket at the back. There's the back of the pump. And you'll see here, I put the pulley onto the pump here now. So there's the pulley that runs on the pump. So you can adjust it. That's pulling it up, pulling it down for belt adjustment. And the next picture here, you'll actually see the belt onto the pump. So looking here, so there's the belt onto the pump. It all works. It's quite in a compact area. The next thing was to get the rocker covers on. So they weren't quite flat. So basically, gave them a really good sand down. Made them dead flat. So underneath them, the gasket would seal spot on. Once they were cleaned up, on they went. So the motor was pretty much together now. So the next things to do was to tape it up so nothing got in there, and put the magneto base in there. And yeah, it was time to think about installing the motor into the kombi for the first time ever. But a bit of work to go before then. Got to build a gearbox as well. Rightio, it was time to build the powerglide for King Kombi. So it's a reed case with a Chevy bell housing, 2-speed powerglide. I made a jig up on the bench there to make it easy to put the thing together. So basically the powerglide's got a lot of good parts in it. So all the good stuff in there to cope with the weight. The Kombi weighs 2 tons. So there's the reverse clutch tool. Anyone that's ever built a powerglide would know what that is. There's all the parts laid out on the bench, all the bits and pieces. All the parts I got in from BTE in America. So it's got a 10 clutch system, so all the good stuff. There's all the clutch plates. So I soaked them in transmission fluid for a couple of days and started putting them all in. So it's got all the good stuff from them. BTE clutches, steels and so forth. It runs a BTE
trans brake valve body, so billet valve body I've got in it. And the output shaft in this one's a really big one. It's a 32 spline output shaft, but the different part about it, it's tapped on the back with a 7/16 UNF thread to take out tail shaft. Because King Kombi jumps, it's got a tail shaft that cannot pull away from the gearbox, and you'll see that coming up. There's the solenoid for the trans brake. Doesn't need a trans brake, but it's got all the good gear in there. The input shaft, and it's a Vasco shaft, so it's a ringless Vasco input shaft. It's got a BTE front pump in it. Like I said, it's got all the good parts in this powerglide. And just testing all the gear shift if it works and so forth. Goes through all the gears. You'll see the front pump. It's also got a BTE pump. There it is there. There's the input shaft itself. Going down the front of the pump there. There's a ringless input shaft. So as I said, all the good parts in it, pretty much as strong as you can make a powerglide. They rate these gearboxes at like 2,500 horsepower, so I won't be making anywhere near that much power. So there it is there, just checking it all sort of works and goes in. And yeah, that was the powerglide pretty much all completed. Everything was done and ready to go. So the next step after the powerglide was to get the rear engine plate modified. So we need to put a hole on that so we could put it into the car. There's the back of the gearbox there. You can see the 7/16 UNF thread on there. So all the good stuff in there. There it is, completed and all finished. So I was happy when that was done. Next video coming up now. Rightio, so here we are outside. We've got the jigsaw set up on the engine plate. Huge hole to cut out. So obviously the crankshaft and flex plate's got a bolt on, so you need to put a hole in the back of the engine plate. After a persistent time with the jigsaw, she was all out, cleaned it all up, and the engine plate was done. Bruce is happy with that. Next job we needed to make up was some mounts to put the engine into the kombi, so I made up these plates. You'll see them here. These bolt onto the cylinder heads and make it really easy to put the engine into the kombi. And I've got a leveling jig here, so that attaches to the front and rear of the cylinder heads, the way it goes. And here is the actual yoke. This is a Mark Williams yoke with 1480 unis. So that was an aluminium bush that I spun up just to try and get an idea what's happening here, but that bolts in to the back of the gearbox with the 7/16 UNF bolt. So when that's bolted up, I quickly realised that I actually needed to weld it to it, because just bolting it on there, the yoke will actually slide backwards and forwards on there. So if you watch this here, I basically tighten it up, grab the yoke, and it travels forward. Now I realised I had to make one out of metal and tick it onto the back of the yoke. So off to the lathe, machine one up out of steel. It's quite fun making all these little bits and pieces on the lathe, because they're all going to a cause of finishing King Kombi. So let the lathe do its work there, and watch this video here as it cuts it off. Without the lathe, we pretty much would not have completed anything on King Kombi, because we would be running back and forth to a machine shop. I'm not a machinist, but anyone that uses a lathe, the more you do it, the easier it gets, and yeah, the more experience you gain, but you only learn from using it. So that's a cutting tool there. I'm just using it as a divider. You could just cut stuff off. They have a little tip on them. Really handy little tool. And you'll see here, it'll cut it off there. You keep driving it into the rail, and off she goes. Then I clean it up. And here is the new part. So that drops in neatly into the yoke, like so, and that tigs on, and that stops the yoke coming off. And you'll see in the next video we can actually bolt it up. There you go, I've tigged it up, and there we go. Next video is me putting the motor in the kombi. Watch on. Thanks for watching, guys. That'll be it for episode 21. Episode 22, King Kombi's motor will come to life. Thanks for watching.